Welcome student to this part where we will discuss section 12.4, which will be applications of indefinite integral. We know how to find the indefinite integral, but this time we will do some application in business and economics. So we will just recollect everything we did in chapter 12 in those examples. Example number 1, we are talking about the daily marginal cost. Now remember, whenever we see the word marginal, this means I'm trying to find the derivative. Now derivative of what? It is the derivative of the cost. So the derivative of cost is given to me by this equation. MC means derivative of C, which is the same as C bar. So I have the marginal or the derivative of a cost given by 2x plus 100 with a fixed cost amounting to $200. So if I don't sell any quantity, the cost will be 200. So I'm starting from 200 and then the cost will increase. The question is we need to find the total cost function for this question. So how we would do that, remember, if we want to find the cost, which usually we write it as C of x, it will be the integral of the marginal or the derivative. So it will be the integral of the marginal cost. And that's it. That's the whole story all over here. Now, what's the marginal cost? It is MC bar, and then we do dx. Now, what is MC bar? It was given in the question. It is 2x plus 100 dx. And finally, we just need to find the final answer. Now we ask ourselves, what is the integral of x? It is x squared over 2. And because there is another 2 here, they get cancelled. So you will just get x squared. So the first one would be just x squared plus. Now, because you don't have any x with the 100, the integral will be directly 100 and we just write x to it. Remember, if we have just a number without x, we just write x when we do the integration. So it will be 100x. And finally, because this is indefinite integral, we have a constant of integration. I will just call it d. Now, I need to find the value of d. Find d, just to continue the question. How would we find d? Remember, the fixed cost, if I don't sell anything, if x is 0, this means this 0 and this 0, the answer given to me in the question, 200. So the value of d will be just 200. I will do it here. So remember, if I just plug in 0, the answer should be 200. That's if we plug in 0 here. Now this means, let me just do it here also. I take this equation and I plug I plug 0 instead of each x, keep the capital D, which I need to find, and the answer should be 200. Now, if we plug in 0 here, of course, 0 squared is 0, 100 times 0, 0. So how much d? D is just 200. So d equal to 200. So the final answer, if I'm writing it here, it would be x squared 100x plus 200 for the x. And that's how we find the cost function. Let me just repeat what I just did in example number 1. In example number 1, I'm giving the daily marginal cost, which is another way of saying I have the derivative. The derivative is given by 2x plus 100. And we need to find the cost. Now, how we find the cost? The cost is just the integration of the derivative. So we just do the integration of 2x squared of 2x, we get x squared. We do the integration of 100, we get 100x plus the constant d. Next step, we need to plug in 0. Everywhere, just plug 0. Why do we choose 0? Because it says that the fixed cost, what is the fixed cost? It is the cost when we don't produce anything. It's the starting cost. It's the cost that we will pay regardless of how many products we will produce. So if we do that, we get D equal to 100, and that's the cost function here. We'll go to example number 2. And example number 2 would need a new page. So I just need to go to page here, and I will do the solution up here. Now let's see, example 2 has a new concept. So what is given to me? It's given to me the marginal cost and marginal revenue. Remember, whenever we saw the word marginal, this means I'm giving the derivative. So if you want to find the original function, you do integration. Now, this is the marginal cost, MC, and this is MR, the revenue. So here revenue, here cost. Remember, the revenue is the amount of money that is coming in. The cost is the amount of money I have to pay to produce. Of course, in best case scenario for any business, we want more revenue and less cost so we can get a profit. Now, with the cost of producing 80 units is $10,400. Why do I have this information? Because when I do integration, there is a constant of integration. And how to find the constant of integration? I plug x equal 80, I will get that constant. Now, the first question, let's go through the questions and then we'll solve them one by one. The first question you notice here is find the optimal level of a production. What is the optimal level of production? Well, actually, the optimal level of a production, that's when the marginal cost equal the marginal revenue, which means the two derivatives are equal. That's where we get the optimal level of a production. Question number 2, we need to find the profit function. And remember, the profit function is just the revenue minus the cost. So I need to find the revenue, I need to find the cost, subtract them, I get B. Question number C, find the profit or loss at the optimal level, which means whatever you find in part B, substitute the answer you get in part A. So let's do it there. So question part A. The optimal level of a production is when marginal cost equal marginal revenue. Which means this is the marginal cost should equal this is the marginal revenue. Now, what is the marginal cost? Let's go back to the question. It was a 3x plus 20. So here I will have 3x plus 20 equal the marginal revenue start with 44 minus 5x. And that's exactly what we should expect to get. The next step, just move x to the one side. So if you move x to this side, it will be plus 5x. So you will get 3x plus 5x equal, if you move 20 to the other side, it will go with a negative sign, so it will be 44 negative 20. Of course, this is 24 and this is 8x, which means x equal to 4 is the optimal level. In the question, have been asked what is the optimal level of production. That's the optimal level of production, which means x equal 4. That's the first part of the question. Now, for the second part, we need to find the cost and we need to find the revenue in order to find the profit. So I go to the next page here. And we'll just do both of them. Here, B. To find the profit function, we need to find the cost and revenue. So what I will do, I will split my screen into two parts. Here we'll find the cost. After we finish, here in this side we'll find the revenue. So let's go to the cost. How we find the cost, the total cost, C of x. Remember, C of x is just the integral of the marginal cost, dx, which is the integral of, if we just take it, it will be just 3x plus 20. So here we have 3x plus 20. And now we need to do the integration. Now what's the integration of x? It will be x squared over 2. That's the integration of only x. Of course, because there is a 3 here, this 3 will remains where it is. Plus, remember, if we do the integration and we don't have x, we just need to add x. So it will be 20x plus the constant of integration, which I will call it d. And that's C of x. The next step, in the question, it's giving to me the information. If I plug 80, the answer will be 1,400. So what I will do, I'll plug 80 everywhere. In order to find D, I need to find D. I just need to plug 80 everywhere. Of course, if I do that, here I will get 1,400. Here is 80, and here is 80. Why is that? Because the cost is exactly when we substitute 180. Now, this is a very easy, simple arithmetic we can do here in order to find the value for the D. Let me just find it down here. D equal $200. So the cost, finally here, so the cost, which is C of x, equal 3 over 2x squared plus 20x plus 200. That is the cost function. Of course, why do I need to find the cost function? Because remember, at the end, you need to find the profit, which is P of x. And what is the profit? It is the revenue, which we will find now, minus the cost. For the revenue, we already found it here. So I can just plug it here and wait to find the revenue. Now, what is the revenue? Well, actually, the revenue is even easier here. R of x equal the integral of the marginal revenue, dx, equal the integral. The marginal revenue was 44 minus 5x dx, which is straightforward. The answer is just 44x minus 5 over 2x squared plus a constant. I will call it E, and that's the revenue. Now, remember, if you don't reduce anything, which means x equal to 0, you should expect no revenue, so the revenue will be also 0. So here, substitute x equal to 0. Why do I choose x equal to 0? Because remember, if you don't reduce anything, that way you shouldn't expect any revenue. That's exactly what I'm doing here. So here is 0, here is 0, here is 0. This will be 0, this will be 0, this will be 0. So if we just go here, no revenue if you don't reduce anything, so E is equal to 0. That means the revenue is equal only 44x minus 5 over 2 x squared. And that's need to be written here to find the profit. So we get 44x minus 5 over 2x squared. Now this we can even do more with it. It will be 24x minus 4x squared minus 200. And that's the profit function. That's the answer for part B. The way we did it, we find the revenue, we find the cost, and we subtract them from each other. How do we find the cost? By taking derivative. How we find the revenue? By taking the integral. Finally, part C, we would been asked to find the profit exactly at the optimal level. Remember, the optimal level was 4. So here we need it exactly at 4. So how do we find it at 4? We just plug in 4 instead of each x you see in the question. Maybe the answer will be positive, maybe it will be negative, we don't know. Let's check what happened if we plug in 4 here and 4 here. So that will be negative $168, which is loss. That's the optimal level of production. It will be in that number here. Let's go to example number 3. Example number 3 is we are giving the marginal revenue. So again, we're giving the derivative. I have the derivative. And I have to find the revenue. So you have the derivative of the revenue, the marginal revenue. You need to find the revenue. And then we need to substitute 100 to find exactly the revenue when x is 100. How we find the revenue is the same story all over. So the revenue of x, it will be the integral of the marginal revenue. What is the marginal revenue? It is MR bar dx, which is the same as what is the marginal revenue in the question. It is 6E.01x dx. How do we find such integration? We already know how to find the integral of only e. If it's only e, we just write ex. Now, if there is a number, we need to divide by this number. So it will be 6 over 0.01, and the e will become the same. Of course, plus d. This is r of x. Of course, again, we do the same idea as we did before. We plug in x equal to 0 in order to find d. Now remember, if you plug in 0, you shouldn't expect any revenue. No revenue when the answer is 0. Now, if you plug in 0, the left-hand side will be 6 over 0.01 e to the power 0.01 times 0 plus d. The right-hand side, it will be just 0 because it was already 0. How do I know if you plug in 0, the answer is 0? Because this is the quantity. If there is no quantity, there is no revenue. Just keep this in mind. Now, if you have a calculator, just go ahead and find for me this one. It will be just equal to 600 plus d equal to 0, which means my d is equal negative 600, and that's the answer. course, my final answer should be I have to plug in x equal 100. So the final answer, do it in yellow. So just to make sure that this is the final answer, plug in 100. It will be 6 over 0.01 e 0.01 100 minus 200. This will be just the answer. And that, of course, will be a revenue, so the answer will be in dollars. That's how we do example number 3, which is just again, we need to find the integration of the marginal revenue. In example number 4, we will repeat a question that we already did as similar to it. Already did in question number 4. And in question number 5, we will talk about the average cost. Okay, so I don't have the cost itself, I have the average cost. So what we need to do here, we will have to go over the same concept. Solution. What is the average cost? The average cost is just C bar of x, which is, if you want to find it, it will be the rate of change, which is the derivative of average cost. Now, what's the rate of change of the average cost? That's the main question. Okay, that would be just C bar derivative of x dx. Which is equal to negative 10 over x squared plus 1 over x dx. Of course, before I decide to do the integration, let me rewrite this function a little bit better. So this would be just this one. Negative 10 x negative 2 plus 1 over 10. And that's what we need to find as integration. So we need to find this integration. So remember, this is continuation. C bar of x equal to, now we can do the integration. So the integration will be just, since we have x negative 2, we'll just add 1 and divide by this number. So it would be just negative 10x x to the negative 1 divided by negative 1. Plus, of course, if I have just a number, we just add x to it, plus, of course, the constant, which usually we call it d. So what is C bar of x? Equal to, it will be just 10x negative 1 plus 1 over 10x plus this constant d. Now remember, in the questions I have, if I plug in this number, it says that the average cost of 10 units, so if x is 10, the answer should be 20. So if I plug in 10 here, I should expect the answer to be 20. Now if we plug in 10, that means x negative 1 remember, my goal is to find this d. So here I need to plug in 10. Here I need to plug in 10. So this, if we do it with the calculator, the left-hand side will be just 2 plus equal to 20. So 2 plus d equal to 20. That means d itself equal to 18. Thus, the average cost is, what's the average cost here? If you just write everything together, it would be 10x negative 1 plus 1 over 10x plus 18. And that's the average cost. Of course, in the question, I've been also asked to find the average cost when x is 20. So all what you need to do, part B, just add 20 here. So it would be 10, 20, negative 1, plus 1 over 10, 20, plus 18. And whatever the answer we will get is the final answer. Of course, the answer should be in dollars. So it would be just half plus 2, that's 20.5. And that's all about the application.